welcome to Spotlight on Nutrition. I'm Tracy Berg.
And I'm Joanne Rosenbluth.
And today we're going to be talking about meats and protein. But just to give you a little background, if you didn't see our last few shows, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and we'll tell you a little bit about the show. I am a graduate student at Framingham State College, and soon I'll be a registered dietitian. That's what I'm looking forward to. And my background is in cooking. I went to the Culinary Institute of America, and I've worked around the United States and a little bit in Europe, cooking in restaurants. And I kind of decided I want to change my focus a little bit because I really enjoy nutrition. So I went back to school, got a degree in nutrition, and here I am. And
my background is in nursing, so I have a natural interest in healthy things. I also like to cook. So that kind of led me to Framingham State College a few years ago. And I'm now a senior student, and I'm looking forward to being a registered dietitian also. And we volunteered to do these programs for WACA this summer. And
we've had a lot of fun doing it.
A lot of fun doing it.
Okay, and to give you an idea of what the programs are about, we focus on the food guide pyramid from the USDA. And we've gone through so far the bread and grains group. We've talked about fruits and vegetables. And today we're going to be talking about the meat group. And that's our focus today. And also to give you an idea of the different ideas that we want to come across to everybody, and what we want to, different health ideas we want to spread, is it's kind of outlined right here. This is a format from the USDA. And for instance, one of the things is eat a variety of foods, maintain a healthy weight, choose a diet low in fat, especially saturated fat and cholesterol, and choose a diet with plenty of vegetables, fruits, and grains. Use sugars in moderation, salt in moderation, and alcohol in moderation. And something that Joanne and I say all the time is, basically you can have anything, but in moderation.
In moderation. It's all on how you put your diet together.
Right. So, okay, so today we're going to focus, as we said, on the meat group. And we have a bunch of things here to show you. For instance, as we said before, in the meat group, just again to outline the pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid is the largest group. That's the grains and bread group. The brains.
The brains.
The bread and grain group. That's supposed to comprise about 50% of your diet.
Right.
And then you have your fruits and your vegetables. And that kind of goes along in with the carbohydrate group, right? 50%. Then we have our meats and our dairies. And the meat should be about 15 to 20%, which is the protein. Mm-hmm. And that also, that kind of coincides with the dairy group. And then fat should be about 30%, 25 to 30% of your diet. And you see the fat group itself is way at the top of the pyramid. It's not considered a group. It's not considered a group, but nevertheless, you'll get fat throughout all the food groups. Right. Okay? And so today we're going to focus, as we said, on the meat group, which daily we need 2 to 3 servings. And we're going to give you an idea of what a serving is. Okay?
Not only are meats in the group, but the group includes dried beans, peanut butter, and eggs. And here we have half a cup of dried beans. These are suggested serving sizes from this group. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, 1 egg, or 2.5 to 3 ounces of cooked meat.
And the examples of the meats that we have here is, for instance, 1 hamburger, a 2 to 3 ounce serving of hamburger, kind of looks smaller than the pork chop that we have. But that's only because the pork chop still has the bone included. In actuality, it has about 3 ounces of meat. And that's the same for the sliced tenderloin, which is sliced thinly in 3 slices. It looks bigger, but it's actually 3 ounces of meat.
I don't know if we mentioned fish. That fish is part of this group.
Right,
we
fish
don't
is
have
part.
An example, but
and poultry.
And poultry, right.
Okay, and that goes along with the same 2 to 3 ounces as 1 serving. Right. Okay, and then we're just going to show you a few things on this chart here. For instance, when you have some raw hamburger or raw meat, the 2 to 3 ounces that you eat per day is after it's cooked. So it's actually the cooked weight that we're talking about. You might start with a 4-ounce hamburger patty when it's raw, but after it's cooked, it's down to 3 ounces, and that's what we're talking about. And another way that we describe or try to tell people the amount of meat to eat, a good idea is the size of a deck of cards. Consider that in your hand before you go to sit down to a meal. The size of a deck of cards in your hand is about the size of the meat that you're looking for.
Right, you don't have to weigh out your portions.
Right.
Just kind of picture deck of cards.
And some guidelines to remember with choosing meats and controlling fat and calories. You choose a lean meat cut. For beef, use a choice or select grade because they tend to have less fat in the meat. Choose ground beef that is 85 to 90% lean. Use cooking methods that reduce rather than add fat, and we'll show you a few of those. Trim all the fat off the meat before eating, and consume meat in moderate amounts. And that's an important thing because especially in our diet in the United States, people tend to eat a lot more than the 2 to 3 servings that we need. And these meats have a lot of fat in them, and the fat is a saturated fat and tends to stay with the body. So we're trying to emphasize the fact that you try to keep the serving sizes down, and you'll be better off. One other thing is if you're having beans, and beans have hardly any fat in them, so they're a really good choice to go with from the meat group. And we just wanted to show you like a comparison. This was Joanne's idea. I thought it was great. We've got some 93% lean beef, which means that there's 7% fat in this beef. And then we have a 75% lean meat, which means that there's 25% fat in this beef.
1/4 of that meat is fat.
And to emphasize the point, in this 95% lean or 93% lean meat, it has a little bit more than a tablespoon of butter or fat in it. But this 75% lean meat has the equivalent of a stick of butter inside it, which is a lot of fat.
Some of it will come out when you cook, but not all of it. In fact, most of it's going to stay in the meat. And after cooking, for example, a 4-ounce burger, you start out with 4 ounces of raw meat, and you cook your burger, you're going to end up with about maybe 5 grams of fat in the 93% lean beef, as opposed to over 12 grams of fat in the 73%. So there's a big, big difference in the fat content.
Whereas you might be saving money with the 75%, you're actually just buying extra fat.
Right, you're paying for fat.
So you're probably better off getting the leaner meat. Anywhere from 85 and above is your best bet.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just to show you a couple more tips on trimming fat, we said that before you cook your meat, trim all your fat off. Now, if you're cooking poultry, it's okay to leave the fat on while you're cooking. In fact, it's better for the bird.
Remove it. Yeah.
Remove it after, because you'll have a nice moist chicken. Whereas if you try to, say, roast a chicken without the skin on, it's going to be really dry and tough. So leave the skin on. It's not going to add any extra fat to the meat, and then take it off before you eat it. Okay, and here they are taking off some more fat after it's been cooked. And this is just a way of skimming the fat if you're making a gravy or something like that. Now, the only thing that's going to come out at the bottom is the juices. And another way, if you have like a beef stew or if you've poach some meat or something like that, chill the poaching liquid and then just take the fat right off because it gets all hard and you can just scrape it right off.
Yep.
Okay, and some heating, some dry methods or different kind of cooking methods actually is what we're talking about here.
Lower fat cooking methods.
Lower fat. There's ways to get around the fat. Just kind of change your cooking method. Reduce the amount of fat that you're using when you're cooking. That's a good way. But trying to avoid using fat at all is a better idea. And one of those ways is to roast beef. If you have a roast.
Put it on a rack so
the drippings come down and just discard them. Or broil your beef, or pan broil without any fat in it. Stir fry using the smallest amount of fat that you can. Or braise it in a little bit of liquid with some dry heat. Or cook it in liquid like a stew. In fact, that reminds me today, one of the things that we're doing is a fish stew. We'll be making bouillabaisse, showing a recipe for bouillabaisse. And also Joanne's going to make a
Caribbean black bean chili.
Caribbean black bean chili.
No
Sounds
meat,
interesting.
No meat at all. So.
Yeah, another thing that we suggest is if you try to, once a week, try to break away from having meat on your, on your dinner plate.
A meatless meal.
So here's an example of one of those. Let's see what else we have. Okay. And this is just an example of what is in a piece of meat. Now here we have an example for a pork chop, a tenderloin pork chop, which won't have too much fat. And these guidelines here have the fat, all the visible fat removed. Mm-hmm. The calories are going to be, for a 3-ounce piece of meat, anywhere from 171 to about 210 calories. Mm-hmm. And total fat here is only 6.9, which is good. Your cholesterol at 70 milligrams, and it's suggested that you have only about 300 milligrams of cholesterol per day. So one pork chop at 70 milligrams is a pretty good bet.
Not bad.
Sodium's extremely low. And one of the most important things about the entire meat group, in fact, it's why we have eggs and peanut butter and beans included in the meat group, is that they all contain protein.
Protein. They contain amino acids are found in protein. Those are the building blocks of your cells, and it's used for synthesizing DNA.
Which is making DNA.
Making DNA. And
the basics of your life.
Of your life, yeah. You have to have amino acids. Protein is used for growth. Children need it for growing, and pregnant women need it because they have a child growing in them. Adults need it for the repair of body tissue because we lose body tissue every day. But we don't need as much as adults as children and pregnant women do. Our needs are less.
So it's important to have protein every day. Also in meats and the meats group, we're going to find iron, and especially in the red meats. We're going to find zinc. We're going to find thiamine, niacin, and B12,
and
B vitamins.
These things all work in conjunction with protein to help build our bodies, to help the building process. So that's why nature seems to have put them together in the same foods.
That's why you don't find the iron in celery.
That's right. That's right, because celery doesn't have the protein. So
it kind of keeps it all together. The protein is in the meat, the iron's in the meat.
The thiamine, the niacin, the B12.
Okay, I guess it's time we can do some cooking.
Yep, we're going to make Caribbean black bean chili. We call it Caribbean black bean chili because it's not really a Texas chili, and it uses black beans, which they use in the Caribbean, so that's why I call it Caribbean chili. Take 2 medium onions. I have a tablespoon of olive oil in here. 2 medium chopped onions. 2 medium chopped green peppers.
Lots of veggies. We love the veggies.
Yeah, lots of veggies. You want 6 cloves of garlic chopped. I like
garlic
garlic
lovers
too.
dish.
Yeah, that's good for you. You stir that around. I would actually cook it longer, but we're a little pressed for time, so what I'm going to do is add 2 teaspoons of basil, 2 teaspoons of cumin. I like to cook that for about 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, it smells good already.
Yeah, it does. Spicy. While I'm cooking that, I'm going to cut up the chilies. Now these are, actually I'm going to put my gloves on, which is what you need to do when you cut up chilies, because some of them are so potent they can burn your skin, very uncomfortable, and if you happen to get them in your eyes, like I've done, you're really going to regret it.
Now, so if someone is kind of not the adventurous type to go for the chilies,
they might want to go with the mild green chilies in the can or canned jalapenos. These are called chipotle chilies. They're dried and they're smoked jalapenos, and they give a really nice smoky flavor. I've soaked them in hot water, and I just chop them up.
How long do they have to soak for?
A couple minutes.
Good.
Yeah. They give a really nice fragrance and a really...
Are they hot?
Well, depends on where you're coming from. Yeah, they're fairly hot.
Yeah.
So I like to put about 2 to 3 of them in here. I like it hot, so you get used to it. So you just chop them up. You can also find these canned, and you don't have to chop them, but I've never succeeded in finding them canned, so I buy the dry. And you just toss them in. Then you can take your gloves off. Stir that all around.
Would you use that liquid there that...
I never have. I suppose you could as part of your cooking liquid.
But
yeah. I have 3/4 of a cup of tomato puree. Oops, forgot the beans. 3 15-ounce cans of black beans that I've drained and rinsed under water to remove the some of the sodium that's in the can, even though they're not terribly high in sodium. You can also use dried beans that you've soaked and cooked. I have a can of low-sodium vegetable broth here because this is a vegetarian dish.
and could you use if you weren't a vegetarian, could you throw a chicken stock in there or something?
Oh, sure,
like that?
yeah.
Could you even use water if you wanted to use water?
I think you could. It probably wouldn't have as much
Flavor.
taste, but that'd be okay. And a couple of dashes of cayenne pepper. Got to have a little cayenne. And then this is cracked wheat, and if you saw our grain program, we talked about cracked wheat. And I'm going to put this in because this will help thicken the chili, and it also gives it kind of a meaty texture when it cooks. And that's it.
Give them a look at what that chili looks like. Can they see it from that camera over there? Maybe not. I'll check later.
And then you just bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and simmer it for about a half hour. And it should thicken up. If it doesn't get thick enough for you, you can take some of the beans and just smush them against the side of the pot with the back of a spoon, and then stir it into the chili.
Okay, we're ready to do our bouillabaisse now. And to start our bouillabaisse, we're going to use all kinds of different vegetables. We have some fresh fennel, and we're using some leeks and tomatoes, celery and onions, and then we're going to put in our seafood. Now, bouillabaisse is basically a provincial seafood stew, a French provincial seafood stew. And they use a lot of fresh vegetables and stuff like that. And we're going to serve it with a crusty garlic bread. And it's really nice, especially in the summer when you have lobsters and clams and all these kind of fresh fish coming around. And it's really nice, different kind of meal. So to start it off, we're going to put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil into the pan.
And it's very low in fat. Fish has practically no fat.
Yeah. And I'm just going to cut up some of this fennel. I don't know if you've ever seen fennel. It's also called anise. And it's got kind of a licorice flavor to it. And it's one of the distinct flavors that you taste in the dish. Okay. You just kind of cut out the center of the bulb here. And then we'll just chop it up. Small dice it.
I can smell it. It smells like licorice sticks, those candies.
Yeah, it's a great smell. It's really fresh, and it goes excellently with the seafood. So we'll throw in about 3/4 of a cup of fennel. I'm going to put just a little bit more in there. That's where we get a lot of the flavor from this dish from.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Yep. And we're going to put about 1/2 cup of onions and 1/2 cup of celery and 1 cup of chopped leeks and about 2 cloves of garlic, give or take. You know, if you're like Joanna garlic lover, you might want to chuck in a little bit extra. Okay, and we're just going to saute this.
Smells great.
This would, yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's really all coming up. This is going to saute for about 3 minutes. We're going to kind of speed things along a little bit for television, and we're going to throw in about 3 cups of fresh tomatoes. And about a half a cup of white wine, give or take. And about a cup of clam juice. Now, if you want to go ahead and make your own fish stock, that's the best way to go. But this is a nice quick recipe, and we're going to just go ahead and put our bottled clam juice in. It's about a cup of clam juice. And we're just going to let all this cook down. And then we're going to throw in a teaspoon of fresh thyme. And this came from Joanne's garden.
My famous herb garden.
Her famous herb garden. And this is also going to take just a little bit of cayenne pepper. We'll put in a couple shakes. And a classic bouillabaisse is going to have some saffron in it. But if you're on a budget, like we're on a budget, we're going to put in a little bit of turmeric. It's going to give it kind of a yellow flavor and a little bit a yellow color and a little bit of flavor to it. But if you don't have the turmeric either, you can just do without. It's fine without it. We're going to just throw in about a quarter teaspoon of turmeric. Okay? Now this is going to cook down for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to come back and put our fish on top of it, and the fish will all cook up, and then we'll be ready for our bouillabaisse. So we'll be back in a few minutes to show you how we're going to put the fish on top, and then we'll finish it off for you. Okay? Be right back. Thanks. Okay, we're back. And we've cooked our sauce down for about 15 minutes, and you can see how we have this nice yellow color from the turmeric and the tomato coming through. It smells great. Okay, so now we're going to put on a fish. Today we're using cod. Now the fish that you put into this stew, you kind of want to stay in one piece. So use a firm sort of fish. You can use cod, haddock, or what else? Tuna. You can put in monkfish would be great. Or some swordfish chunks would be awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to cut, we have about 1.5 pounds of cod here, and we're going to cut it into small chunks about this size and just lay it on top of our sauce or our stew. Just fold that one over, and I've got a bunch of them cut over here. Just sort of nestle them in. Okay. And then we have about 1/2 pound of shrimp. And we're going to put them in around here too. And like we said, you can use anything you want with this. Scallops are great in it.
Mussels, if you like mussels.
Mussels are beautiful. We couldn't get them.
Mussels look so nice because of the black
we tried to get
shells.
some mussels, but the store was out of mussels at the moment. So, didn't have any mussels. Now we're going to put in some cherry stone clams and just sort of stick them in here.
These are very attractive clams too. They're nice and small. Yeah, the shells are pretty and they're really nice. It's going to look great.
Yeah, they do look nice. And remember, when you're using clams, well, and any kind of seafood, any kind of meat, always keep it extremely chilled. We had these in ice cubes and on ice, and we soaked our clams and then we scrubbed them to make sure they were clean before we
and if
put
they're
them in
open,
our sauce.
if they're open before you use them, you can tap them, and if they close themselves, they're okay. But if they don't, you just chuck them.
Right. And if after they're cooked they don't open up, chuck them.
Chuck them.
They're dead.
I mean, they're dead after they're cooked anyway, but.
Okay, and then we're going to put in a little lemon rind, a little lemon zest. We're just going to kind of grate some over the top. Smell that?
That smells good.
Yeah. Okay, and we'll grate about the whole lemon. Just get some of that out of there. And I'm going to put in the juice of 1/2 lemon. Take out the seeds. And I just kind of squeeze it into my hand so that I catch the seeds.
It acts as a strainer.
Yeah, a human strainer.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're just going to put on some parsley. A lot of parsley. It looks so pretty.
Oh, that
all
looks
this green
really,
comes out.
really nice. Yeah.
Okay. And some fresh cracked pepper. Okay, and then we just cover it with some foil. We're going to cook this for anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes, okay, until the fish is just cooked through and the clams are opened and the shrimp is nice and opaque. So again, we're going to be back in about 5 to 8 minutes and we'll show you our completed items. Thanks, be right back.
We're back and we have some finished dishes here. I just want to add a little lime juice to this chili. This is another little Caribbean touch. I left my reamer at home, so Tracy said use a fork. So squeeze it in with a fork. Juice of half a lime.
See if I can get a look
and that
at
will
this.
finish that.
You can get a look at our chili there. Looks yummy.
Actually, it got really thick. It's from the bulgur. Then you want to put it into your bowl. And we're going to serve it with cornbread. Now, beans and grains form something called complementary proteins. Together, they make a complete protein. They each have, one is low in certain amino acids, the other is low in other amino acids, and they kind of fit together like a puzzle to make a complete protein.
So if you're having a bean dish without any other kind of protein involved in it, always have some other kind of rice with it or some kind of bread or something like that, so you make yourself that complete protein.
You don't necessarily have to do it at the same meal, but it's only natural that you're going to do it at the same meal.
Yeah.
You're not going to sit down to a bowl of beans. So there's a little bowl of chili.
Just that over there. And
This looks great.
then the bouillabaisse is done. And as you can see, all the clams have opened up. The fish is nice and it's flaky now. It's opaque. It's not translucent. So that's ready to go. And the shrimp is they're all cooked and they're good to go. So we'll just dish it out. You serve bouillabaisse in a bowl because, as you see, it's a stew.
Sort of a soupy stew.
It's soupy and it's yummy.
Looks like the cover of a magazine.
Another clam in there. Some more juices. Okay, just finish that off with a little bit of parsley. And maybe we'll garnish it with some fresh thyme. Oop, that's enough. Okay, and that's done. And as we said, we're going to serve the bouillabaisse with some garlic croutons, a crusty garlic bread. And there you go, a nice summer meal.
Easy, low fat, and
Delicious.
delicious. Yeah.
Okay, and okay, so what we're going to do now, we're just going to kind of recap what we talked about today. So today we covered the meat group, which includes eggs and beans, peanuts such as peanut butter, and meats.
And fish, poultry, any kind of meat.
And
We talked about protein and what it does for you.
right,
Why we need it.
how protein is composed of amino acids, which are the building blocks of life.
Right.
And it has lots of important vitamins and minerals that we need daily. And we also showed you the difference between the ground beef, the 75% lean ground beef, which is 25% fat, and the 95% lean ground beef, which only has a little bit of fat, and it's a much better choice when you're going to choose your meats. And if you have any more questions, there's an 800 number that you can call the USDA. And
Meat and Poultry Hotline.
Right, the Meat and Poultry Hotline.
I'm going to put that up on the screen, I think.
Yeah, it's 1-800-535-4555. 4555.
4, 5, 5. Yeah.
3 5s. Or you can call the FDA, and that's where we got information about fish, and that's 1-800-332-4010. So we hope you enjoyed today's show, and we hope you make some of these recipes and incorporate meat into your diet, and we wish you health.
Yep.
Thanks.
And eat some beans.
Eat beans.